Hello, hope you're doing well. Today I want to talk about getting older and knowing what to do with your life. I just turned 25 in October, and it's literally about to be halfway through the 2020s. I've always expected time to accelerate, but not this fast. I have a hard time wrapping my head around it all. Sometimes it feels like it's 2020 again and we just poofed 5 years into the future. Obviously, the world has seen some crazy times lately, and that has probably contributed to this feeling. There's also just the fact that as you start to do the same things over and over again, time and events start to blend together. One thing that I took for granted and only recently realized is just how short our time on Earth actually is. My realization came looking at my parents and other family members. There are two things that I've noticed. One is that the age gap between myself and them is a lot smaller than I ever thought when I was younger. I think this probably happens to most people as the difference stays the same but the gap shrinks proportionally. So when you're 16 and your parents are 45, let's say, that's 29-year difference. But when you're 30 and they're 59, it's still 29 years. But if you divide it and make it as a fraction, then it's obviously smaller. And if that doesn't make sense, just ignore that. But the second thing I noticed, or guess really thought about, is that the ages of my parents and my grandparents when they had their lives, quote unquote, together. My parents had me when I was 28, and my grandparents had my mom when they were like 23, and my dad also at 23. This doesn't tell the full story, of course. Just because they had kids doesn't mean that they had their shit together. Either way, I compare myself to them, and honestly feel kind of shitty about it sometimes. Now, of course, the world's a different place, and you have COVID, inflation, the economy in general, the job market sucks. Now with the advent of AI going to be taking over, that's another wrench thrown into it. But with or without excuses, I've never known what I wanted to do with my life, or rather, how to go about it. My goals have always been simple: to have a wife, a couple kids, a house, and an income where my wife wouldn't have to work if she didn't want to. Now, obviously, that's a lot easier said than done, especially in today's economy, though I do think in the future it'll become easier, hopefully before I'm too old, but we'll see. But so far, I only have 0% filled on the progress bar, meaning I don't have a girlfriend. Obviously, that means I don't have any kids. Right now, I don't really have any income. I'll touch on that a little bit later. And honestly, I'm not all that sad about it or anything because, again, there's a lot more circumstances nowadays than there ever was in the past. But I do recognize to achieve these goals, you have to actually do something with your life. Let's take the time since the pandemic started. I consider this March of 2020, but you can do February, January, April, whenever. So essentially, it's been about 5 years. I've skated through these years, working, finishing an associate's degree, been unemployed, lived at home most of the time, and just lately moved out finally and went back to finish my bachelor's degree. I don't know if I'm the right person to be giving life advice to people, but I do know this much. You have to actually do things if you plan to live on a normal life, or any kind of life for that matter. Take that from someone who has spent most of his life playing video games and watching YouTube, and just having no direction into where to go with life. Trust me, they're both extremely enjoyable while you do it, but it's so easy to fall into the web and not leave. For the longest time, I have never thought about the future in much detail other than the vague plans I've just outlined, like having a family. Instead, I was turning my mind off and consuming video games or YouTube videos. It's not like I never thought about it before, but as a professional procrastinator, I continually put it off until a later date. And the expiration date, I feel at least, is finally coming up soon, and if I don't get my shit together, I'm gonna regret it for a long time. I'll get into details in the future video, but last year after some depression and doing absolutely nothing with myself, I decided to at least hop back on the track and return to college. Specifically moving 1300s across the country from New Jersey to Arkansas. Quite the jump, but so far it's gone well. From a financial perspective, it's definitely, positively, a bad decision. I saved a lot of money living at home with my parents and doing my first years at community college, and mostly everything transferred, which is nice, but this endeavor was a lot more than just about money. I won't go into detail about it, but I've done decently well with saving my money from working and investing over my 7 years of adult life. So if you're looking to take this as advice, just take into account how much it is to move or pay stupid tuition. You have to do things based on your own means. While this move wasn't only about money, it does not mean I came here to party or fuck around for 2 years. After the first semester, I met some people, but hardly have any desire to drink with college kids that I'm completely out of touch with. No, what I came here to do was to try reignite my passion for life. Not suicidal or anything of that sort, but since COVID, I lost my reason for existence. I was just chugging along day in and day out, kind of looking towards the future, but mostly not. I lived a boring life. I hung out with friends at least once a week, spent time with family quite often, and had a roller coaster ride with my physical fitness. It wasn't a bad life at all. I mean, looking back on it, it was quite nice. But through this, I became reclusive. I lived at home, and when I wasn't out of the house or watching football in my family room, I was essentially glued into my childhood bedroom. For a while, when I was like 21 or 22, it was comfortable. I enjoyed it because I knew no better, and COVID, being in that isolation kind of fucked it up a little bit too. Once I hit 23 and 24, it started to feel like a cage. My parents are great parents and supportive and everything you want out of a parent. But that being said, there comes a time when you want to be free. That age differs on the person, it's not a one-size-fits-all deal. And it was nice living there and awesome being able to spend time with them daily, but I was stagnating. I wanted to move out and wanted to go down south because the furthest I've been was basically the end of PA near like Pittsburgh area, and the furthest south I've been was Florida, but we flew there, so really I skipped over most of the south anyway. We went on vacations when I was younger, but we didn't really travel much on those trips, and if we did travel, it was by plane, and that was only to Florida, so that wasn't very much. So that's why I wanted to move out and, explore a little bit, but I never had a reason to do it. And my parents weren't going to, and probably never would have kicked me out of the house. It's a great gesture, and I appreciate it, but in a weird way, I kinda yearned for that kick in the ass to get my life together and do more than just waste away in my room. Now, if you have a girlfriend or any sort of partner, these conversations come up with time and you will eventually do it. I hit 0% on the progress bar towards that goal of getting a wife, so in other words, I didn't have a girlfriend. That's a topic for a later video. The only thing I want to point out about that is that if you have a girlfriend, it forces you and helps you to mature faster, and if you don't, there's a good chance that won't last. So I needed a reason to leave and spread my wings. There were multiple occasions when I wanted to up and move, but I just felt shackled. I didn't want my parents to worry about me if I did move far away, which ended up being way further than I ever dreamed of. That's when I decided going back to college, as it would allow me to move away with a reason to do so. So far after the first of 4 semesters, I still have no idea what I'm going to do after I finish here. That's okay though. It's very easy to compare yourself with others. If you feel like you're falling behind in life, trust me, it doesn't matter. Everyone has their own path. Some are go-getters and start their lives early. Others are not go-getters, like myself, and require a back-against-the-wall moment to push forward. When there's no other choice, the only way is forward. There is no correct way to live. Figuring out your own life takes time and just trying new things. Progress is almost always uncomfortable at first, and taking that first step is extremely hard. Imagine being married and having kids at 23. To me, that sounds lovely. But what happens if you get divorced after 33 years old and realize the marriage wasn't going to work? Then your life falls apart right then and there. What's the first step after that? Life is full of ups and downs. That's just how it is. There will be moments in time where you think you have it all figured out and are smooth sailing in life. Then out of nowhere, a wrecking ball comes in and destroys it. There's only 2 options. You can lay in the debris crying your eyes out, or you can build a sturdier building. You live and you learn. You will never have your life figured out, and if you think you do, then you're wrong. But that's okay. You just have to learn to accept it. And maybe you don't want to listen to a 25-year-old who barely has any real life experience. I wouldn't either if I were in your shoes. This story was a message to myself, a synopsis of what I've learned over the years. So, in doing that, I would love feedback in the comments if you think I'm onto anything. If I'm wrong, please let me know and call me stupid, I would love it. I'm not a masochist or anything. Well, maybe I am, I don't know. But learning other people's stories of how they got to this point is fascinating to me. And if you're still here, thanks for watching. Have a great day.